Welcome to the FBA Basecamp podcast.
How's it going, everyone? Today we have with us a guest you'll absolutely love. He's a 17-year-old that did over 100,000 in sales in November and December, his first 12 months. We're currently in Q1, getting out of the slowdown that happens at the beginning of each year. Abe, we appreciate having you on and talking about your progression.
That's awesome. Let's do this.
Give us a little bit about your backstory for those of you who don't know you, and like, how'd you find Amazon? Did you ever do any reselling before that? What's your journey been so far?
Yeah, totally. So 2 summers ago, not this past summer, but in August, I was just kind of looking for something to do other than a restaurant job that I had. I actually landed on affiliate marketing that I started. I did that for about a month and made a couple $100s, but I ultimately just didn't see like a long-term vision in that business model. And just kind of looking through TikTok, and I actually stumbled across one of Miles's videos. I talked about it with my mom. Everything would have to be under her name, but after talking about it, we agreed to set up an account. And a couple weeks before I started school, I actually started having her drive me to like my local TJ Maxx, my Ross, even like a Kohl's a couple times. Just the stores nearby, scanning a bunch of products. Oftentimes I would leave with nothing, but just scanning toys, whatever I could find. I also started books that well too. I came across some of Reezy Resells videos, and I didn't even have my license at this point, but it was just going to different stores and trying to get the ball rolling. But it wasn't like long before I fell in love with sourcing products and did it the rest of that year.
Yeah, I remember you like saying stuff like you got to ride your bike somewhere, and I'm like, man, if anybody's saying that they don't have the ability to do this, like they need to stop, because you're sitting there trying to figure out how to get there on a bike and trying to figure this stuff out, or borrow your parents' car. I'm like, man, he doesn't even have a license and he's out there hustling. Yeah, so you put up some pretty big numbers in Q4. So especially for how quick you kind of started. I think you started the year before around Q4. You were like really starting to look at stuff.
So it was 2022, and I started with $500. Just out of my bank account, I started with $500. And after going to a couple stores, I definitely stayed in RA too long. So that was a huge mistake of me, was being stubborn and just doing the easy stuff, which was just mindlessly scanning through things. Even though after we talked about doing OA, it really wasn't until the beginning of the next summer, May, 2023 was when I really started to, get my Seller app subscription and and start learning how to storefront stock.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you sending me some pictures during it all. And yeah, similar to your whole thing, I had gotten started from seeing Miles videos and Warner's, and going through looking at the stuff. And then I did a video call with Miles with my wife on, so that she could see that this was like real. So same kind of thing, like just like making sure that people understand you can actually do this. And we'll put Miles's information down below in the comments or in the link section down below. But yeah, I mean, we're both heavily involved in Miles stuff and done some of his coaching, and that's been great for me. And he's a big proponent for OA, and that's something that it seems to be the easiest thing to scale as far as having to spend as much time in the stores, which I can't stand doing. I don't know how you feel about it, but I hate sitting in the stores and sitting around all the people in the lines and all that stuff. But yeah, so how were you? So in Q4, you threw up these numbers that how did you ramp up to that point? Like how were you able to get from the $550 to throughout the year, while doing school, while doing your sports and AP classes? How were you able to ramp up to that and actually be able to get that done?
Yeah, so upon just reinvesting every dollar I had, I took advantage that I don't have any living expenses, nothing like that. So I was able to reinvest everything. I'm really fortunate for that. And a lot of it was being way over leveraged, and it was dumb to, be that far towards Black Friday and Q4, but it did all work out, thankfully. But it was just back to school was when I really learned everything. I joined Miles's course in the summer, and I really learned how to source OA. I spent a ton of time in July buying. I went super wide and learned a bunch of different things. But in August, a couple sales I went really deep on for me at the time. And I learned, what it was like to buy more than 10 of a product, going 50, 100 deep on certain things. I really learned the leverage you get when you can be confident and go deep on an ASIN. And then when those same sales rolled around Q4, or I see the same product at the same price or even cheaper, I know just from seeing the market that I can go very, very deep. And it was basically just doing what I did in August, but going 2 or 3 times as deep.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the key thing where you got that turning point is, you got to feel, a little bit comfortable being uncomfortable with, making these bigger orders, but you have to kind of know that what you're going to sell, you can read the keeper charts, you can kind of see the data that's in there. So having all the apps to be able to kind of quickly look at stuff is certainly helpful, but also being in any of these masterminds and knowing what's going on. If you hit the buy box and you have 10 items, it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. You can sell 10 items without ever hitting the buy box, but if you have 150 and you hit the buy box, all of a sudden you start flying through stuff and you're like, man, I should have ordered 300 more. Is that kind of stuff that you were seeing where you're like, there's just products that you were like, I wish I had bought so much more of it?
Yeah, you always get the feeling after you sell out quickly, I wish I bought more, but you also do want to go really wide when you begin. I made a lot of bad buys and had to lose money or just sell super cheap to even be able to sell them. Just when you see products again, that's when it just comes with time. I really, realized how big Amazon can be in August, just when I could see products be the same price across different websites and continue to buy them. Q4 was just me applying my knowledge from the summer. The summer was when I learned everything and understanding that, once you learn a certain niche, you don't need to go and buy 3 of each different thing. You can confidently go deep on certain products.
Yeah, there's a lot of, thought with that. With some people are saying, hey, I'm just going to buy whatever's profitable. Some people say, I'm going to stick in this category. Other people say, I'm going to get really good at selling, Dick's Sporting Goods or something. And they say, I'm just going to find everything that I can find about that, find their cycles, do all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different processes that people go through. And some use a hybrid of all of it. I'm kind of in the camp of, if there's something that's profitable that I think is going to sell well, I don't care if it's fishing hooks or eye patches or whatever. It can be anything, and
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and hit it. But to that extent, you can all of a sudden find that you just, like, for me, for instance, when I look at shoes, they all look the same to me. So I don't do a lot of shoes.
Mhm.
So I'll pick up a pair of Nikes and have no idea what I'm looking at. Where somebody like Miles can look at it in half a second, know what year it is, what style it is, all the different things. If it sells well, he's just seen it day in, day out and knows that category very well. So it's something that figuring out where your expertise is or what you're interested in can also help you a lot in all this.
Yeah, I remember I was always super stubborn when I was like learning OA. Like I didn't really want to do it. I would hop on and I joined a leads list and I would look through that leads list. And if I didn't find something profitable, I wouldn't do anything sourcing for the day. I'd go to a store. But everyone will have this moment when you learn OA where you're sourcing a sale or a couple sales where it clicks and you keep finding stuff profitable, whether you're rolling on, like Seller Amp or your manual sourcing. There's going to be a point in time where that clicks and you realize that you can continually find profitable products. But before that, it is really hard. And I think that's why so many sellers fail, is they don't get to that point where they know they can, continue to source.
I did the same thing when I first started. I wasn't in all these groups, wasn't paying attention to all the things. And even though I had heard all this stuff in a lot of different videos and, some of the other podcasts, I don't know if I just didn't pay attention to it or anything, but like I wasn't even using like Rakuten, and I was like ordering stuff that I could have gotten like 10-15% back on different things, or maximizing the gift cards, that the legal gift cards. There are illegal gift cards out there you don't want to get into, but the sites where you can buy them legally, maximize your margins. Wasn't doing any of that, wasn't doing any Rakuten. And then like I realized a few months later, I'm like, why didn't I do this? I could have just, that was free money leaving out there. And it's something that you really just got to maximize whatever you can to get that advantage, so that if the prices do tank and drop down so low, that you still have something in there to at least get out and not lose too much or not lose anything at all and get ahead of it.
Yeah, one of the best things that I picked up on when I was going deep on stuff in August, when I started to buy a lot from the same site, was stacking gift cards. It's really annoying to place 4 gift card orders when you're just starting out to place an order and you have to keep doing them all day to buy gift cards. But when you're getting, 7% back on every order, 10% back on every order, it builds up so quickly. And that's what's going to save your business, because when you're able to create moats like that, all your products indefinitely become better. And when you transfer your mindset to always use a gift card or always use a coupon, you're just going to end up finding better products because you're looking harder.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then also you start to realize that those stores that offer that stuff, I'm going to pay attention to their sales a little bit more, rather than getting the 8,000 emails that you get every day with all the different stores you've ever filled out a form for. You can now say, okay, like, hey, I like this store. I know that I can get these discounts on. I know that their gift cards are usually at this. So you can kind of get ahead of it. So when the sales do happen, you can all of a sudden look at it and realize that, okay, this is how much more I can make on all these items. And then you can quickly buy the items where everybody else does, that's on that. There's a lot of photos of you where, some of you're laying on top of all your products that you've currently bagged out and everything, especially like Q4. So obviously a massive amount of like FBMs going out every day that you're doing there. What's your process on fulfilling those orders?
So I'll touch back when you're going deeper on ASINs. The better you get with sourcing and the more confident you do, the deeper you're going on ASINs, the easier it is to delegate FBM. If you only have 3 ASINs, but you have 100 orders, it's a lot easier to give someone 30 orders of the same product. So that's what I used to my advantage in December. I only had really 10 products that I was really, really deep on, sometimes even way less. And so if I bring a friend in or I bring my mom in or someone else to help me pack, it's a lot easier to just give them one product. That's the bulk of your orders. And that way I was able to keep up with, anywhere from 80 to 250 orders a day that I was getting during Q4.
You had gotten a little sick during the end of December there, so you probably would have had even more numbers if that didn't happen. But one of the things I think it was either at the beginning of December or right around then, you had asked me some questions on, prepping and packing. And I talked about like prepping the stuff ahead of time so that I was ready to go out, throw it in the bins. Did you do that at all? Were you able to execute on any of that, or did you get sick right after that conversation?
No, I never did any pre-prep because I would get a lot of orders that were more than one.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I would have to adjust the packaging that way. But just having everything organized, your stock counts known, your labels ready, that was how I did it. But again, the best thing about learning more about sourcing is when you can go deeper because it's easier to delegate FDM orders when you have smaller amount of ASINs.
Yeah. So, and speaking on that, so like going deeper, like how were you able to buy the amount of stuff that you bought? Were you buying it all from one place? Were you spreading it around? How were you able to get the quantities that you were to really go deep on some of these ASINs?
Yeah, so there's a couple sites that I knew very well going into Black Friday, and there was a ton of sales that I missed out on because there was a lot of websites that I just had never sourced before. But, I stuck to the ones that I knew, and I was able to go really deep just from catching stuff early because I knew when their sales started. I know when their, promotions came on or when their restocks happen, and I'm able to catch products before other people do. So that allowed me to go super deep. And then capital-wise, just using credit cards, anything that I can convince my mom to get me. I was trying to increase limits and whatnot, but there was definitely a lot of times when I was over leveraged. But yeah, it's all credit cards.
What did your parents think about all this? Like when you start spending a lot of money, like obviously it's a lot different when you're spending a few $100s to, tens of thousands of dollars in products. What was that? What was that discussion like? Making that jump.
It was a slow buildup when I started just the RA in the stores. I was, literally growing $1,000 a month. It was pretty steady, but when the OA picked up, especially in August, there was a couple times when I had ran my account pretty much to zero. It was pretty crazy how low I went. And they didn't like it at first because the money doesn't come back right away. But
No.
After August went well, and the return came in, mid-September, I gained a lot of trust from them. And Black Friday, I went pretty hard.
Yeah. Now, did you have a prep center at all, or were you doing? So you did everything FBA and FBM was going through you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's
everything was in house, and I did $70K August. I wish I had a lot more capital. I think I could have done a lot more for some products. At the time, I knew I needed to go deep. I just really didn't have much money. But I picked up a prep center after back to school season, and I used it a little bit, but I had never gone more than 100 to 200 units per month with that prep center. So it hasn't just been till now that I've really been sending a lot to them.
Yeah, I mean, they really come into play. Like if you're not in a state that has tax advantages, if you're doing say clothing or shoes or those kind of things, they can work out great. If you're in a state that has tax advantages with that, then it's not as critical to go. But like for me, I'm in Texas and it's like 8.25%, sales tax. So anything over $13 of a buy cost for me, it pays for itself to have the prep center do it. I actually save money having them prep it. So for me, it was an easy decision. For some other people that live, like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, there's certain things like that. Or if they live in Florida, for instance, and they're doing a lot of, things with not prescriptions, but supplements and all that, they're tax free in Florida and Texas. I think a lot of baby goods are tax free. So a lot of things there where you may not have that same advantage, but when you start sending stuff to a prep center and it just makes sense because you're saving money on it. It makes it easy as long as it's a good prep center to get the stuff out quick. But I imagine you had to do a lot of FBM throughout the whole year to scale that way that you did, because you can turn over the money faster. Is that something you did the whole year, or are you just doing that during back to school in Q4?
I only picked it up during back to school. That's when I really saw the returns. You get a product, you either pick it up at the store, it gets delivered, and the same day you get it, it all sells. And that's truly scaling the best way possible because you're getting your money back well before your credit card statement even comes. So that's the best way to flow it. When you get fast moving products during back to school or Q4, it makes way more sense to FBM them because, you're gonna have to pack them, send them out, wait for them to check in. But that was the main way I was able to scale from just doing 20K. And then I jumped up to 70 was just the FBM because of how fast the money was able to roll over.
During that time, you were going to school, you're doing like AP classes, you have, sports that you're doing. Were you still doing were you doing 0 day shipments on that, or were you still at 1 day so you had an extra day to prep stuff, or how are you keeping up with all the rules that Amazon has and being able to get your stuff out?
So during Q4, I was on 0 day handling and I had school and sports, but a lot of it was just having your, everything together. On the weekends, I would still go out with my friends and have fun. And during school, I went to school every class and I would have, workouts or sports practice. But that's just where you have to have everything together. But it's also, goes to show I'm not a true 6-figure month seller. Just because I did 120K, so much leakage happened. I didn't get around to the right returns or file safety claims and take care of, customer reviews. I wasn't able to do any of that. So I had to sacrifice all that to be able to get the numbers I had. So, going this year, I want to have a lot more delegation, but, I was overwhelmed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to do, and there's different books on it and all different things on just the discipline that you need to have to be able to do things like that and have that organization, as well as really only doing the things that you do best, and only do the things that only you can do. So if there's things that you don't have to be taping boxes, you can be repricing or looking at all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of the boxes, have somebody else do, which it sounds like you're doing. And then are you sourcing with a VA now, or do you have them helping you out at all?
I haven't implemented it as much as I want to, but I actually work with a buddy of mine, Eddie. His Instagram is Eddie Does FBA and his Twitter too. But we run the VA together. I think it's a lot more affordable because you split the payment, and especially when you're starting out, the training and the not so good leads, it helps cover the cost a lot to split. He sends us leads every day. He works about 8 hours every day, but we're going to transition him to do a little bit more admin stuff. I think when you become good at sourcing OA, you understand that if you can hit sales hard and go deep when you need to go deep, a VA for sourcing isn't as essential as it is for doing your order numbers and center reconciliation and stuff like that is a lot more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, there's some stuff that so I have a VA and I also share it with another seller, John, and he kind of does a lot of he handles the payments of them, and I send the payment to John and all that kind of stuff. And so our VA fills out everything, sends us the list, we go through it, and then sometimes we'll say hey, we need you to hit this site, these different things, and we find that she's better at just finding sales by going through reverse sourcing through storefronts than she is at manual sourcing. And then we've also had VAs that were better at manual sourcing, but were just awful at going through the reverse sourcing. So you kind of got to see what fits your needs and what your buying habits are with it. But certainly having somebody else be able to help out with that helps, because sometimes you got to hop on a video call and you may not be available, but Eddie might be available to do that and really discuss things with them. So I think that really does help. And like you said, cuts the cost down quite a bit.
Yeah. For the VAs, my biggest tip would be find one that is up and working during your time zone. The only time he gets up is, about 30 minutes before I go to bed. So I'm either staying up late when I get on video calls with him. And that's been one of the biggest hurdles for training him and getting him up quickly is the time zone difference. So I would say the best thing you can do is get someone that's up and working in your time.
Yeah, I mean, we at one point, John and I had two VAs. They're both opposite of hours, so we just had leads coming in 24 hours a day. It was actually hard to manage that many because we're trying to figure out what to buy, and of course, you can't buy everything on the list. Just like a leads list, you kind of got to go through it, make sure it makes sense, and then coach them on it if it doesn't make sense. But there was just so many leads coming in that we're like, holy crap! trying to cover all that stuff. But what was nice about it is, like you're saying, if you found out about a lead or you found out it was some obscure holiday, all of a sudden you could say, hey, I need you to jump on this and get me whatever you can from that site. And they were able to do that. Obviously critical to be able to have that communication with them. And if they're able to be awake when you're awake, that's obviously great. So you've been doing this a short period of time, and like people DM me all the time and they're asking, like, how long does this take? And a lot of time goes into all this, and there's a lot of long hours. So it's not something that's just an overnight success story. People see that and are thinking, okay, yeah, you did this overnight and did it really quick. And you definitely did it quicker than others, but it takes time to ramp that up.
Mhm.
And I've never met a successful person that asks, like, how much time it takes. It's like a better question is like, how can I make the most out of the time that I have? And it seems like you have things in place to try to make the most out of the time that you have. And then you're trying to delegate. This year is really what you're going to be focused on, is getting more of that time so that you can really exponentially grow this. Is that kind of where your head's at mainly for this year?
Yeah, so I would say that people starting Amazon have to understand that it's not a scam, it's legit. There's plenty of people that are making full-time income doing this. So you have to have the mindset to not work, for your time. You can't be worried about how much you're making an hour or how long you spend on something because you're learning stuff. There were so many times where I put endless hours into something and got no return out of it. Yeah, so now that I've got to a certain point, I can start worrying about how much time I'm actually spending on something and trying to get my time back. When you're starting out, you have to have the mindset that, this is a real thing. People make legit money from this. So you can't be worried about how much time you're spending learning something or, doing a task that isn't really making you money. When you have to figure out how to make a shipment or figure out how to reprice something, you're not buying a product. So you're not making money on that, but you have to learn how to do this stuff and you have to spend time, and then eventually you can earn your time back through going deeper on sales or putting in systems. But the biggest thing for me was just not caring about how long I worked, and falling in love with the steps.
Yeah, and speaking of that effect, like during, I guess it was back to school during kind of the summer was going through, you started posting some videos of you doing some side jobs to even throw even more into this and put more time into this. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so capital was an issue. And as I put everything back in my Amazon business, it would be nice to have some spending money. So upon another thing I came across TikTok was the window washing trend. Everyone saw that young kids making it, but my buddy and I started knocking doors. Like, we don't care what people say. We're going to go out to neighborhoods and start knocking, and got rejected a bunch of times, but it picked up pretty quickly. The third day we did like $1,500 in revenue. It was pretty crazy. So we were making a lot of money from that. I was able to dump that into the Amazon business to buy more products, and I was able to have some spending money on the side. But it was just another example of something that I picked up over the summer that I saw online, because people get the impression that when they see something like Amazon, they see the gurus, they just automatically think it's fake. But something like this is achievable.
Yeah, I remember at one point, so I have a background of doing some commercial cleaning and that kind of stuff through previous work that I've done, and I know I was giving you some tips at one point, and then you had mentioned that you're not cleaning the second floors, you're only cleaning the first floor. And I'm like, why would you do that? You're like, well, I don't have to carry a ladder around, and it's quicker to get in and out of the houses. And I'm like, makes a lot of sense with it. So like you clearly were just on point with trying to maximize the time for the value that you're getting out of it. So pretty cool that you were able to do that and kind of again throw it all back into Amazon, which is obviously showed that how you're able to do it. So again, if you have the time that you have, so you got to maximize whatever you have with it. And obviously you were strapped in a lot of different ways, but we're able to make that work, which is real cool.
Yeah, it
So
just started out with, not caring that people are going to say no to your face when you go knock on their door. But, as soon as we got that up to business, I had to spend a lot of time researching where to knock, get supplies, what should I say? And then as soon as I got up to date, I could get my time back, bring a friend to wash the windows. But it's all about not caring about how much time you have to spend to learn something to start out.
yeah, I mean, I always tell people if you don't ask, the answer is no. So if you go in there
Mhm.
knowing that it was already no because you didn't ask, then it can only go up from there. They can yell at you, whatever else, that kind of stuff. But usually people want to, they're interested in whatever you're trying to do, especially if you try to like
Mhm.
soft sell them. I think I told you, like, if you go to their neighbor and say, hey, might be making some noise over here. If you need something, this is what I'm going to be doing. And then they're like, oh, you're washing windows, and then they might ask you to wash theirs too. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's always a no until you ask. So getting back to some of the actual like selling some of your process, like how are you qualifying leads? Like, say you get them from the VA or you find them yourselves. Like, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Certain rank? Are you looking for a certain type of product? Certain value point? Like, what are you trying to look for to qualify that something's good enough to test out or good enough to buy, 300 of when you've never purchased that product before?
So I think over time you'll gain knowledge on when stuff's good. But starting out, a mistake I made was only worrying about the BSR. Something that's 1K BSR might sell a lot worse than something that's 250K. And I've learned that the competition is a lot more important on a lead. So, if I'm seeing three sellers and a stable price on a 200,000 rank listing, I'm going to go buy a lot because I know that that's a good product. The only thing is just lower BSR things have a lot more insurance with it. You're always going to be able to sell the thing, but you might lose money, but at least you're not going to get caught with stagnant inventory. Where on a high, rank product, you might get caught with slow moving inventory, but at least, you should be able to sell it profitably.
Yeah. Did you get stuck with anything that you had a ton of product of that took a while to get rid of?
I always went very, very wide. I know we talked about going deep during certain sales, but when I started out, June, July, when I really started to source OA, I was literally buying 3 units of a product, 2, 5. I went super, super wide. And I think that contributed to a lot of my success because I was never set back. If one product didn't sell, the other one did. So, it cancels out where I made some money. And going very wide on every product allowed me to gain a lot of knowledge quickly.
Speaking of knowledge, like how important were any networking groups or the coaching stuff that you went through or just talking to other sellers in general to you?
Yeah, so I always tell people how crazy this is, but when I would source sales with my friends in the summer that I met, there would be days where I didn't source a product myself and I would spend way over my limit. I'd be spending $1,000 a day, thousands of dollars a day, and I didn't even source the product. If I'm doing a bunch of sourcing one day and I send it to my friends, they might do some the other day and I get a bunch of leads. I'm not even sourcing and I'm spending way over my daily spend.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm in a few like medium-sized groups that we just talk in general about, how to run our businesses. I'm in other groups where we share a bunch of leads and do a bunch of things that are very small, like 4 people in the group, especially over Q4. I mean, they were instrumental in doing a lot of really moving a lot of product for me and being highly profitable on categories that I never even really sold in before. So that was huge for me as well. Do you use a repricer at all?
Yeah, I use Be Cool and I got into AI pretty early because I just think it's a no-brainer. $100 if you're able to get a good return on your products. I mean, it's just a system where you're buying back your time. As soon as you get to a couple thousand sales a month, I think you should jump into the free trial. It's another thing where you're buying back your time and you're getting to move your products. So I use the AI one.
Yeah, I had started with Be Cool from like day one, just going through it because I just knew that I didn't want to have to deal with that and kind of see what it was. I've recently changed out from them. I'm trying to find which one I like. I keep testing a few different ones to see which one sticks the best. But yeah, it's certainly just to click on an AI function and say, okay, I want it to be profit driven, and I want it to be sales driven, velocity, whatever you want to put is pretty nice. You can just drop down that thing and not have to worry about setting 800 different settings in there where you have the cheaper versions. So managing the spending power that you had during your peak season. So how did you not just go and see a sale and say, I'm going to spend all my money on this sale and know that a sale is going to be coming down the road? Like you obviously haven't been through some of these seasons before. So as a new seller, like how did you know to kind of hold back a little bit because you knew that other stuff was going to be profitable come down the line?
I think it was buying throughout the day. So I didn't have any knowledge and I can't really say, if you see a sale one week, you got to wait. One thing I did pick up on was I actually bought a lot of a sale that started on Friday. And the next Friday, they had another sale that was similar, but it was better. There was more rewards with it. And I messed up because I bought a lot the first Friday and, a lot of sellers were getting it a lot cheaper than me. So that's something I wrote down and I'll be ready for this season. But I would just say if you're specifically sourcing maybe on Black Friday or a certain day where there's a lot of sales, just buy throughout the day. Don't spend 2 hours straight buying something if you don't know. Just place an order, keep sourcing, place another order. And you'll just gain knowledge of all the sites as you don't spend time on one product.
You should look at it too. A lot of those sites, if you see something that happens like that, you can look at their like buying, terms of service type thing, and you go through and look at it. And sometimes with a receipt or going back to them, you can tell them, hey, I bought the stuff on this, and within 30 days you had a sale that was more than what that was, and they'll actually comp you back the money from them. So check any of those kind of sites, because a lot of them have that in there, and just people don't go and look at it. But if it's switched within 30-day period, a lot of them have to honor, or they will honor that other sale price if you just send them the information.
I
That
didn't
can
even
also,
know that. That's great though.
yeah, it can also flag you if if you're ordering like 1,000 of something, and it can flag you as a reseller if you try to talk to them too much. So you don't want to necessarily do that, but yeah, a lot of times you can go back to them and say, hey, here's the information, I bought this, and they'll comp you the difference. So what are some mistakes that you made that you think others could benefit from?
Mistakes would be just being stubborn. So like I would be stubborn. I didn't want to have to spend time teaching someone how to pack FBM orders. I didn't want to have to spend the time teaching a VA how to source. I didn't want to be stubborn, spending a lot of time not making any money learning how to source online in general. So being stubborn has been a big setback in my business. I would want to just do the orders myself so I didn't have to teach anyone, and I'd end up packing 100 orders, and that would be all the time I had to work, and I couldn't get back on and source. So that was a huge mistake. And then I would just say, leveraging FBM when you're starting out.
Yeah, it's the same thing. FBM, I tried a few when I started out, and I just let it go too quick. So I'm like, oh, this is annoying. I'm getting like a couple orders here and there, but I didn't have the type of quantity of stuff to really make it make sense. And I didn't feel like calling UPS or dropping the stuff off, because it just didn't make sense for my time. But that's something I did the same of. It's one of those things that doing anything that you can to get that time back is critical. Now, were you not relieving that because you didn't want to train somebody, or were you just worried that they weren't going to be able to do it as well as what you were doing it?
That, and yeah, not being able to do as well as I could, and just having to spend time teaching them when I could just source myself that day. But it's really over time when it compounds.
Yeah, and I think it's a fear that a lot of people have. Is just like, really, like for me, again, I'm in the state that's got 8.25% sales. So day one, I should have been sending stuff out to a prep center. Like the prep
Mhm.
center that I was sending stuff to had a minimum of like 200 a month of stock count that you're sending them, which is not high at all. So it's like, I can easily send 200 units to them to have them go through that. So it's kind of looking at that, and knowing your numbers, and knowing where that starts to matter. And most of the stuff I was buying was well over 13. I was buying stuff that was $60 and selling it, and I'm paying taxes on that. So it was stupid to be throwing that much money away. What are some things that you might have doubled down on, or done a little bit more, that you could recommend to some other people that are just getting going?
I would just say consistency of networking, knowing that like a lot of people aren't going to respond to you, but you just have to reach out. You have to get left on red, and you have to reach out to people that you think would never talk to you, because this will take you so far, answer your questions better than any YouTube video. So just staying consistent with networking, and just double down, like going deep on stuff that you know is going to be good, to be confident in your buys.
Okay. And where can people find you? Social media.
Yeah, on Twitter or X, and Instagram should just be fba.abe, and the same as my Discord too.
Thank you, Abe.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, DM us and let us know. See below for show notes, and please click the link to access our free Discord, where you can interact with everyone from beginners to 8-figure sellers. We know that your time is the most valuable thing that you have, and we appreciate you spending it with us.